Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is a Blue Collar Wine Program. And today we are with the, let's get this right, Director of Sales and Marketing, Kurt Johnson from Beaux Freres. Thank you, Kurt, for coming on the program.
Stan, thank you for having Beaux Frere and myself here. This
Absolutely.
is exciting.
Yes, it is. And the cool thing is you brought in 09, 2010, 11, two 11s, and a 2012. The two 11s, one's from the Ribbon Ridge Vineyard AVA, and the other one is just Willamette Valley. So these are really not blue collar Pinot Noirs. Maybe I could have, but
They do have a blue collar.
yes, they do. Very good. I've bought a bottle of Beaux Freres in the past, so when you have a few bucks in your wallet, maybe you want to splurge. But Kurt, why don't you just tell your quick story of what you do and about the Beaux Frere wines?
First of all, Beaux Frere is a project that started back in the late 80s. Mike Etzel is the actual star behind the show of Beaux Frere. He and his brother-in-law, Beaux Frere, by the way, is French for brother-in-law, so he and his brother-in-law started this project back in 87. And Mike planted the Beaux Frere Vineyard, which does happen to lie in which later became the Ribbon Ridge AVA. The three blue bottled, or the three blue collared wines that you have here are Beaux Frere, the Beaux Frere Vineyard. We also have Willamette Valley, the green collared wines, and those are not 100% from the estate vineyard. They do and can have some estate wine in them, some declassified estate wine. We have a third label that's not represented here today. It is an estate vineyard. It is the Upper Terrace, a smaller vineyard. By the way, speaking of size, the Beaux Frere Vineyard is about 23 acres. It is planted to Pomar and Vadensville plant material. It was planted on its own roots, but now as we are seeing phylloxera, we are pulling out diseased vines and replanting on a resistant rootstock. The Upper Terrace is a 10-acre vineyard, and that is all Dijon plant material. It was planted in '99, and it is all on resistant rootstock. So that is a little bit of a different thing. We won't focus on that, obviously, because we don't have it here. That is sold out. The Beaux Frere Vineyard is something that we will be tasting. We're lucky. This is my first time in your neck of the woods, and we wanted to actually bring a little smattering of what we've done that show the way that Oregon Pinot Noir can age, how Beaux Frere can age, and also to show some differentiation of vintages between in Oregon and how vintage differentiation is truly important. At Beaux Frere, we try to show how consistent, there's a line of consistency through the Beaux Frere Vineyard, this string of something you're going to say, wow, that is consistent,
Sure.
But it's remarkably different vintage to vintage. So the difference of the vintage and the consistency of the vineyard, which is a lot of fun. So we'll just go ahead and start.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned you're getting a little phylloxera in Oregon. You're experiencing some of that?
Well, phylloxera was originally.
By the way, guys, phylloxera is a little bug that gets into the vines and the rootstock, and it actually kills the rootstock. So it's a pretty serious thing if you don't take care of it.
It really is, and you're absolutely right. It's a little bug that gets in the roots, and the little hairs that come off the roots, the cilia that actually absorb nutrients and water from the soil, the phylloxera destroys those. And over a period of time, it's like the vine suffocates from below. It can't absorb nutrients or water. It's a period of years, but phylloxera was not in Oregon back originally.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
and
right.
All of the vines planted back in the 70s and 80s were planted pretty much on their own roots, on their own feet, we say, and that's what the nurseries were selling. And then in '89, phylloxera was actually discovered or noticed in Oregon, and the University of Corvallis said, okay, stop planting, and everybody stopped, and Mike was right in the middle, of course, of planting, actually about 3/4 of the way through planting the Beaux Frere Vineyard, and the University at Corvallis, kind of our UC Davis in Oregon, came out with a list of safe rootstocks, phylloxera-resistant rootstocks, and Pinot Noir scions that played nice together and in our soils. And so that is when you started to see Dijon and the Dijon varieties and clones coming in, as opposed, or I should say, in addition to the Pomar and Vadensville plant material. So yeah, that little bug, and that it is kind of interesting because the composition of the vineyard is evolving and changing.
Gotcha.
Right now. So when we taste the 9 and the 10, those are going to be about 85% Pomard Vadensville on their own roots.
Good.
And as we get into the 11 and further, you'll see a little bit more of, you know, when something gets sick, you pull it out and replant it, and we're doing it, you know, an acre or two at a time.
Sure.
So it's a 3-year cycle. You don't want to rip all your vines out, and they're still producing, and they're getting old. So they're making some good wine.
Let's get on to the 9. So I'm excited about this. We're going to, let me get a little zoom in of the bottle. Now, for you maybe a lot of you have not had Beaux Freres, but it's an amazing Pinot. I've had it. They have one lower tier, I guess you'd call it, called Les Cousins.
Les Cousines, or just cousin wine.
Yeah, cousin wine. Very nice stuff, too. So let's see what we got going on here. All right, 2009 Beaux Freres, and this is the Beaux Frere Vineyard Ribbon Ridge AVA. That's going to be, when is Ribbon Ridge made in AVA? That's going to be fairly...
Ribbon Ridge was made in AVA in 2006, and I made the crucial error of putting Ribbon Ridge on the front in what was the 2005 vintage, because we were releasing it, and I was so excited about it. And then I realized about 2 years later that everyone glommed onto the name Ribbon Ridge because it's beautiful and cute and alliterative, and Beaux Frere, the Beaux Frere Vineyard, is kind of big and dumb and clumsy, and so it ended up on wine list as Beaux Frere Ribbon Ridge, which was a bit troublesome because both the Beaux Frere Vineyard and the Upper Terrace are in the Ribbon Ridge, and if it just says Beaux Frere Ribbon Ridge, you don't know which one it is. So I then had to spend the next 2 years after we took it off the front and put it on the back. Oh, the fun of labeling wines. And put it on the back, telling the story of how this is Beaux Frere. The Beaux Frere Vineyard wine lists and listings should be pretty much to the smallest designation, which is the vineyard level here, even though the AVA is so much prettier to say. But anyway, that's a little sidebar about the labeling of wines and all that fun stuff.
I like Beaux Frere's name.
Beaux Frere Vineyard.
I love the nose on it. Yeah, this is such classic Pinot.
And look at that color. It looks like Pinot.
It does, amazingly. You didn't throw any Syrah in there.
No.
Go figure.
Syrah's getting all into those red blends these days.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't mind it in a red blend, but it should not be. Well, I'm waiting for the first guy to come out with the Syrah Pinot.
No, it's happened.
Oh, it is? Okay.
There are several of our friends and neighbors in Willamette and in other areas that are doing a Syrah Pinot blend. I don't know if I should mention them, but
they should put it on the label anyway.
One of them does.
Yeah,
and
that's
another
what
one doesn't.
Why not?
And you know, they should be proud of it. They're an irreverent blend. If you know the wine, you'll recognize its tagline: an irreverent blend, by one of our good friends in the Willamette Valley.
So this has great concentration.
It does.
Earl Grey cherries. I mean, I love the Earl Grey. That's, to me, Earl Grey. I get Earl Grey tea on Beaux Freres almost every time.
It's interesting you mention that, because one of the things that has come up repeatedly throughout the day has been a citrus component, even moving into blood orange. And as you know, and I know, bergamot oil is an orange, which makes Earl Grey, gives Earl Grey its flavor. Black tea is stored with bergamot, which is a small orange, and the orange oil from the bergamot is what lends Earl Grey its thing. So what you're really seeing is a bit of tea and a bit of citrus and orange component there, and that you're absolutely right. You nailed it. Yeah, good job.
And just it's, to me, it's Earl Grey and cherries all day. Maybe a little bit of strawberry.
A little floral note, maybe a little earthy complexity, fresh turned earth or mushroom in there, but not too much, not dirty. It really, this is a pretty ripe vintage, 2009, and it shows the fruit.
That's a beauty. Man, lots of Asian spice, which, by the way, is very common in Burgundy, Asian spice. Yeah. And you get it in, not all of the Oregon Pinots, but the well-made Pinots from Oregon get that Asian spice, which, that's what Pinot to me is all about.
Yeah. No, I also enjoy when you get into the spicy complexities. I think that wine is made from fruit, and it should have fruit in it. But we have to remember there is a lot more to complex wine than just fruit. But then again, you don't want to have all funk and dirt either. You want to have fruit, and it's that balance between fruit and the other complexities, the spice, the
I like it a little bit for. There's a hint of forest floor, a little bit of bark going on the backside of this one. Beautiful wine. By the way, let's not get what the 9 and 10 are worth, but just average new release. What is Beaux Freres?
Our retail for our current release, the 2011 Beaux Frere, is $80 a bottle at the winery. As you get outside of Oregon and you work with other layers in the system, they sometimes creep up a little bit. So you can find them at 85 in some markets, and you can find them at 70, 77, 77, or 77.99 some places too. So it really depends on a lot of markups. Pardon my
Oh, that's all right. No, that's what I want you to do. So I'm just telling you right now, this, I know $80 is a lot of money, but this is worth $80. If you have 80 bones that you can spare, it'd be worth it to go buy a bottle of this wine. This is a beauty. Let's try the 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
10 was a great vintage too. In fact, I think they said 10 was probably one of the best vintages out of Oregon.
Well, it's one of my favorites, and I have to say I have a little bit of a
prejudice?
Well, no, I do definitely have a prejudice, but when people say best vintage ever, I kind of cringe a little bit because
well, yeah, because
because our concept is to show every vintage and how different the vintages are, and to make a damn good wine each vintage, and they're going to be different.
Sure,
and they should be different. And if you want wine that tastes the same year after year, these are not those wines. There are a lot of them out there.
Go to Enologics.
Yes.
He'll show you how to make
Go
the same
somewhere.
wine.
Yes. But this is not. These wines are not for that client base, and that's fine. But it's just we don't make a lot of wine. We make about, all told, between the 3, and if you count the cousin wine, between the 4 cuvées, we make about 5,000 cases of wine, which may sound like a lot if you have to sit down and drink it all at once, but it's really not that much wine in the big world
small
of wine.
production, really. And I'll tell you what he's talking about in different vintages. This one automatically on the nose is not entirely different. It still has the Earl Grey, but there's a lot more earthiness on the nose to this one than there was the 09. And that's probably the climate, the weather. Maybe this had a more cooling climate at times than the 09, but it is definitely, the Asian spice comes through big time on the nose, and you get that kind of that Earl Grey orange peel thing going on.
Yeah. And there's a real savoriness, you're right, that savory, maybe a bit of Worcestershire and soy, and dare I throw out the buzzword umami.
I've got to get familiar with umami.
Yeah,
I knew my mommy, but I don't know
you mommy. Oh man, which one of us can make the worst puns today? This is going to be
I'll beat anybody on the worst puns.
The bad pun contest. She's been riding with me all day. Oh, sorry, you can't see her. There's a beautiful woman that you can't see over in the corner here, and she's been putting up with bad puns all day.
A lot more acidity on this one than the 09, by far. Very bright. I mean, it's delicious. I mean, this has got 20 years.
These wines, the Beaux Frere wines, are comfortably 7 to 10, and quite often 15 plus. I say 7 to 10 to be on the conservative side of the wine, and it depends on how people like wine. Different people like wine. People like fresh, young, fruit-forward wine, and some people like older wines with a little more bottle bouquet on them. So it's really up to how you store wine and how you like wine.
From people that buy old book or read old books or new books, same thing.
But people who read books or read pads.
So this is the Beaux Freres 2010. I'm not going to show you the picture. You already saw the label. And this is the, again, Ribbon Ridge AVA Beaux Freres vineyard. You said there's about 23 acres in the Beaux Frere?
Correct.
Okay.
About 23 planted acres.
So that would be like what? How many hectares would that be?
Well, it's 2.47 hectares,
there you go.
acres to the hectare. So I'd have to get out my math and do that. But there's 2.4.
It always sounds
we can just call it 23. So about 10 hectares. More
than that. You have to. Well, there's more hectares than acres.
Oh, hectares the acres backwards. I did it backwards.
That says like 55 hectares. Let's just go there. 55 to 60 hectares. It just sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I think they did that in Europe just to sound bigger.
Hectoliters per hectare.
Yeah, per acre. It sounds good. I got 55 hectares.
Yeah.
Well, that's only 23 acres, dude.
Yeah. What's up with that?
So now, when you pick these, what is the tons per acre that they actually?
Well, we
shoot for?
first of all, tons per acre is a useless bit of information unless you know how many plants per acre are. Because what's really important is the number of plants.
You're a geek, okay, but most people just
Sorry.
understand tons. I mean, these guys out here just are...
But no, if you don't do... I mean, plants per acre and tons per acre, it's ridiculous because
so
there are 2,200 plants per acre. They're planted on meter by 2 meter. And if you have...
How many clusters per vine do you go for?
Well, give me just a minute. When you think about how Willamette was planted originally, in the late 60s, early 70s, they were pulling out a lot of the orchards and planting on very large orientations. Tractors were larger, and some vines were planted 5 and 6 feet apart in a row, and 6 to 10 feet. I mean, you're talking 800, 900 vines per acre. And if you're talking 2 tons per acre off of 900 vines, it's a hell of a lot different than 2 tons per acre out of 2,200 vines.
Right.
See where where I'm coming from with this, and why I am being a geek, because
no, that makes sense.
It's different.
That's cool.
And so what we look for is about 2 pounds of fruit per plant, and it depending on the size of the clusters every year, how many what the mills are per cluster.
Okay.
We adjust every year. But we are anywhere from 1 to 2, and if they're itty bitty, maybe 3 clusters per fruiting cane. And so we aim, if you have 2,200 vines per acre and you have about 2 pounds of fruit, a little under, a little over, you're going to be at about 4,400 pounds, which is about 2 tons. So about 1 3/4 to 2 1/4 tons per acre on the Beaux Frere vineyard is really kind of our sweet spot, depending on vintage, size of cluster, and all these other random things that we don't know about.
No, absolutely.
So what'd you pour? You poured the 11.
2011.
Beaux Frere. Okay.
Beaux Frere Ribbon Ridge.
Beautiful.
AVA. And again, 2011 was a more challenging vintage for sure. At least that's...
That absolutely was. And 11, we are blessed because these 11s are really showing both what the vintage has to offer, but I'm lucky to work at a place that has the ability and the willingness to make the cuts that you need to make. When you're making a bottle of expensive wine, it's not as much about what's in the bottle as it is what's not in the bottle. We always forget about that. It's like, oh, it's in the bottle. And yes, it's in the bottle, but the only reason it's in the bottle is because of all the other stuff that didn't make the cut in the bottle.
Gotcha.
And that's where the expense and the talent of putting these wines together really comes from. We sort heavily. We sorted in the vineyard. I was in the vineyard that year. We were sorting as we picked. We sorted on the sorting table. And then the sorting that everyone forgets about is in the cellar when you're putting the cuvées together and you're actually assembling the blends. That's a sorting function.
Sure.
And so, you know, perfection is not achieved but when there's nothing left to add. Perfection is achieved when there's nothing left to take away. And so, not that we're approaching perfection, but we're trying to get damn good.
Sure.
And
no, that's a good point. I like that perspective. That and especially the blending part. I mean, obviously, so the wines, the barrels that you decide not to put into the Beaux Freres go into cousins.
Well, some of them went into the 11 Willamette. In fact, we declassified Upper Terrace entirely in 11, and it wasn't because it was a bad wine. It was.
Explain to these guys what you mean by declassified.
We have a third bottling, as I mentioned earlier, the Upper Terrace brown label motif, and we did not bottle any Upper Terrace, and we took a good financial hit that year as a small company to not bottle this, our most expensive wine. But when you make this wine and you're going to charge $100 a bottle for it, it better be worth it. And when you sell the preponderance of the amount of wine, like that cuvee, we make 300, 500 cases of it, and we sell most of that to people we know. And so you don't want to screw them over. No. I mean, we are a small winery, and it's important to have this relationship with people. The Upper Terrace was declassified. We did not bottle it, and we put a good chunk of that in the 11, the $50 bottle of wine. So while it wasn't an amazing $100 bottle of wine, it was a tremendous $60, $60 bottle of wine.
Gotcha.
And so when we get to that 11, anyway.
Yes,
so 11 was challenging, but it was the people who can do what needs to be done in the vineyard and have the opportunity to take the choices.
I've tasted many good 2011s, and
there's some delicious ones.
I've also tasted some bad ones. I mean, obviously, they did not take the time needed to be taken to make it into a good quality wine.
Yeah.
So let's give this 11 Ribbon Ridge Beaux Frere Vineyard. Definitely more feminine on the nose, a lot more red flowers.
Yeah, the floral, I think you nailed it right
Yeah.
there, Stan. I think that there's a beautiful floral quality, and still that little bit of forest floor, that little bit of orange peel, Earl Grey, bergamot.
It's there, it's just not quite as expressive. I get more of the red flowers on this
Yeah.
one than I do the other things.
You're right on it.
Let's see what we get on the palate.
Am I allowed to say
Yeah,
about my own
absolutely.
wine? About my own wine? Is that a little?
Well, that might be prejudicial, but that's okay.
But it's yummy. In fact, that 11, I have to say, is probably my favorite of those three Beaux Freres right now, and then the 10, and then the 9. Whereas a lot of people would go for the 9 first because it's a bigger, more robust wine,
I would go 10, 11,
and then 9.
and then 9.
Okay, and that's fun.
Yeah, but the 11 is really good. It's very feminine, but it's still complex, and it's very polished. I mean, I'm amazed at how polished that is.
Thank you.
Good acid, but at the same time, it has like round shoulders. You know, it's not angular at all.
Mike Etzel and Grant Coulter would be delighted to hear this. In fact, they're going to see this, let me tell you.
No, it's beautiful. I mean, the red flowers come through big time. Like you said, totally different vintage. Still have the Earl Grey, still have the earthiness, but this one is just entirely different. The red floral, almost like a potpourri of red flowers. Very nice.
Good job.
I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
All right.
And stay in the 11 vintage and go to the Willamette Valley.
And this is the one that came from the fruit from
This
the
has
upper ridge.
terrace.
Upper
And
terrace.
There are 6 vineyards represented here. The Grand Moraine Vineyard, Xena Crown, Dick Shea's Vineyard, a little bit of Beaux Frere Vineyard, a little bit of Upper Terrace. It is on the back, and the percentages are there as well. And then a little bit of Guadalupe from Ken Wright. So the provenance of these grapes is pretty stellar.
Ken Wright does a lot of Shea Vineyard.
He does,
too.
and
I love that
Dick
vineyard.
Shea it has some wonderful fruit. A good farmer.
That's funny. Dick Shea, and then there's a Dick Boucher,
Yes.
who also has great fruit.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the 2011. This is the green color.
Willamette Valley.
Willamette Valley Pinot Noir.
About $50 retail.
$50 retail, so a little bit more affordable for you guys out there that want to try. And this is a little more available, probably? No?
There's a little bit more made, yes.
Okay.
A little bit more.
So there's a label, just in case you forgot. All right, let's give it a whirl. I'm real curious about this one. So this is declassified upper terrace fruit with a few other things added to it.
And we make this in a bit more of a fruit-forward style, not as much first-year oak.
You guys use French oak.
French oak,
Yeah.
primarily Francois Frere and Terence So, but Grant is playing with a little smattering of other Coopers for the spices that you were talking about.
Yeah,
some of those Asian spices and some different complexities that are involved in there. But we allow a little more of the fruit to shine through at an earlier age in the Willamette Valley.
This has a little more powerful nose on it than the... You can actually, to me it tastes, it has a smell of like juice-soaked wood.
Wow.
But, and man, that Earl Grey comes out every time. No matter, even this one's not as pronounced, but it's there. This has a lot of bark, like, you know, like kind of bark that has been rained on and a little rotted. You know, that's what it
French
reminds me of.
call, what are they? Soupoise?
Soupoise?
The rotting undergrowth in the forest. And when you walk through the leaves or the woods in the fall and you kick those things up and you smell that, there is some of that. That aroma here.
I like that, yeah. You'd be a good writer.
I have good writers.
Okay. This is a perfume. This has a really nice perfume.
You want to dab some behind your ears.
Yeah, I know. It's really nice. I'm curious this one tastes like.
I jumped ahead. I was already tasting it.
Oh, there you go. This has great concentration without, there is no extraction. I mean, it's just really, really complex and delicious. The acid is perfect. Red flowers, bark, Earl Grey,
Wolf
cherries.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, it's just a little bit of raspberry in there.
Yeah. Some
And then
red
the orange peel comes through on the backside. Yeah, this is a beautiful wine. I gotta get my hands on some of that.
Yay. Was that an order? Did I just hear an order? And I brought along, this is not released yet, the 2012. I took the train up from Portland, and I really like that. So, but I smuggled a couple bottles of the 2012 Willamette Valley.
Perfect.
Because this will be released in about another month or so up in your neck of the woods here. And it's a young wine. It was just bottled at the end of last year.
So he's a little more careful on his pours than I am.
It's okay. Pour some more for me.
No. I get a little carried away because on my videos I usually just glug, you know. So I have to be more sensitive when I'm with the dude from the winery.
Yeah. Have fun. So 12 was an
The
interesting
aromatics on
vintage.
these are incredible.
I have to be honest, when you open a Beaux Frere wine up first thing in the morning, well, you may not be opening first thing in the morning. When we open them in the morning, or when you first open a Beaux Frere, they can be a bit muted, where they're made in somewhat of a reductive manner.
Okay.
You remember your chemistry class? The redox equation that first year with the hydrogen bonds?
That was
never
terrible.
mind, you were taking a nap during that class. But
I was always late to the chemistry.
We won't get into it, but these wines can be a little bit tight and aromatically closed, and they have a little bit more CO2, carbon dioxide, in them. It's naturally occurring. We don't add anything, but both the primary and the secondary ferment produce CO2, and a lot of wineries will either warm up the cellar to push them through malolactic or splash the wines around, and that will burn off or blow off some CO2. We leave that there. It keeps the wine a little fresher, livelier, and it allows us to keep the SO2, the sulfur levels, a bit low. Remember that CO2 is structurally similar to SO2, and so that these wines do have SO2 in them, but we can keep that lower. The whole point of that is, right now, these wines have been open, had a ferry ride, come back, they've gotten some air. These wines are a little bit more reticent right on opening. They can use a little bit of air. We like to open them and drink them and watch them evolve, but if someone is going to be having a dinner and they want these wines to be showing within an hour and a half or 2 hour period, give them a quick tableside spanking. Yeah. Put them in a decanter. They don't have to do it for no candle and Tastvan or anything, but just splash it into a decanter. It can even be an orange juice pitcher. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just splash it into something, give it some air, blow off some CO2, bring some O2 into it, and then just watch that nose open up, just to give it a little boost.
Thanks for doing that, because I did a decanting episode, and I really encourage anyone to decant, especially these wines, like he's saying, that are a little closed up. You're missing out if you just pop and pour this wine. You will never understand why Beaux Freres gets high accolades if you just pop and pour it.
Nobody wants to hear this because it adds this extra step and it sounds so laborious. And
Throw
you know what?
Throw it in the blender.
Not. But probably about 90% of the wines that are sold out there today are current vintage wines, and they can all benefit amazingly from a little bit of air and blowing off some of this. If you start splashing your wine into a decanter and then pouring it, you'll never go back. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And like you said, you don't have to use a fancy flute thing. You can pour it in a pitcher if you want.
Those are hard to dry and everything.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt to shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, don't be afraid. You're not going to.
Have you ever
blended Burgundy? I have not, but I know of people who have.
It actually does. The only thing I don't like about blending, and in my episode,
it might be a little bit too aggressive.
It is too aggressive, and it does give it a creaminess that I don't think belongs to the wine. But it is definitely better than the Venturi. That Venturi is.
Well, between Venturi and decanting, I'm definitely an old-fashioned decanting kind of guy.
The Venturi did not do anything for the wine.
You know what we started
but
to play
you could
with
do
was the
Venturi.
Coravon. Have you played with the Coravon at all?
No, I have not.
The little device with the needle that you put down and it actually injects argon and you can pour wine out of the...
Oh yeah, the guy from Cordon has one of those.
Well, I don't.
And it keeps it. Well, the only
they probably wouldn't even let me on the ferry with compressed gas, would they? But...
So this one is a lot more dark cherry.
This definitely reflects the 12 vintage.
Oh yeah, and the red flowers, and the Earl Grey does not come through as much on this one, although I think that's probably, as it ages, maybe that that will evolve.
Very
more.
young wine. Young wine in its
This has
infancy.
some licorice on it too, which is crazy.
Red or black?
Fennel.
Fennel, okay.
Yeah. More of the plant.
Gotcha,
Than
gotcha.
it's not candied at all.
Yeah, okay, good. No, and forgive me for quizzing.
No,
but
that's all right. No, no.
We haven't tasted a lot together, so we don't know each other's tasting
Yeah.
language.
I should have said fennel. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I forget. I just bypass that.
I remember my first
It
tasting.
reminds me of biting into a fennel plant.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
or
yeah.
what is it? The Indian restaurants where you get the little fennel seeds at the
Yeah.
end, and you kind of bite on them as part of the breath freshener to leave. And but I remember my first tasting years ago in California, production tasting, and coming from the restaurant world and the commercial wine world, the production tastings, and I said something silly to the winemaker like, "This wine has more tannins," and of course he nailed me. He said, "Are those stem tannins, seed tannins, skin tannins, or wood tannins?" And I didn't say anything in a tasting for another 2 months. You know, I was like, I don't know, but it's definitely learning.
This is a beauty. I'm telling you, this is a beautiful wine. This is going to be. This could be. I'm going to venture out. This might be one of the best wines in the bunch 5 years from now.
I think that the 12 vintage, I hate to say it, and people who say best vintage ever should be taken out
didn't
and
say
shot.
ever.
No, you didn't. But I have to say, Mike Etzel
Don't
himself,
shoot me.
Mike Etzel himself has said, and he doesn't make proclamations like this, that the 12 is the best vintage that he's seen in Oregon so far, and that's in 20-some years of winemaking. And he doesn't make proclamations like that, and I don't. But this is the 12 vintage is one that's going to get some notoriety out there.
Oh, it's just got it's beautifully complex. I mean, it's got red flowers, it's got bark, it's got everything going on. The only orange peel, it's rich, but at the same time elegant. I mean, I'm going to get a bottle of that and just put it away. 5 years, man, that thing is going to be
Get a six-pack.
the star of the bunch. Yeah, sure, why not?
And because you need to have at least 2 or 3
Yeah.
to watch them evolve over a period of years.
That's true. What a salesman.
Well, I mean,
Buy a six-pack,
but you
what the
really
heck?
do. I mean, to get a perspective
No,
of
you're
wine
right.
and watch it.
Well, we always said at least buy 4.
Yeah,
At
4.
least buy 4, so you can taste one a couple of years down the road, see what it's doing. Then you'll know how they're going to age.
Well, you should buy a 6-pack, and it's like those years back how you sold pot getting through college. You'll sell 3 of them and make enough money so that the other 3 you can watch evolve over the years. No one's ever known that he sold pot to get through college. So
No,
I'm sorry to
this
announce
is-
this
yeah.
on YouTube.
Sorry,
right now.
this is new, but I didn't know anybody knew, but he must got some inside information.
Remember that? You buy a quarter pound, you sell 2 ounces, you keep it in 2. You sell 3 ounces, you get an ounce for yourself. You
That's
come on.
right.
Same thing.
Tell him it's since a million when he really grew it in the backyard, right?
I don't know about that.
You don't. Kurt?
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
coming.
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. Beautiful
Had
wines.
a lot of fun.
I actually have a greater appreciation for Beaux Freres after this.
Well, thank you. Cheers. Thank
Cheers.
you very much for having me here, having
Yeah,
Beaux Frere
absolutely.
here, and for spreading the gospel.
All right.
Bless you.
Here's to keeping the snob out of wine. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely.